everybody can hear me. All right. My talk this morning, are you a Trump or a Queen of Hearts? And many of you are joining us today. I'm going to read a little bit of this because it's difficult to do this. I normally just sit in front of the congregation and do it extemporaneously, but many of you are joining us today from the online community, and therefore you've never met me personally. And also because I often talk on consciousness survival from a scientific aspect, which is the subject of my books, the classes and seminars that I hold. My speaker's bio on the church website tends to accentuate the science of consciousness. But this morning I'm going to discuss one of the principles of spiritualism. So if you tuned in hoping to hear my thoughts on consciousness as listed in the bio, I don't want to leave you totally disappointed. You might want to later Google my name and YouTube, and you can find my video there on consciousness, which will discuss that subject for you. Unfortunately, we don't often talk on the principles of spiritualism and what it means to be a spiritualist here in this life. So in my next few addresses, I will be looking at our spiritual principles, spiritualist principles. And today I'm going to talk about personal responsibility. Now, it's all about love, and Jacqueline's gratitude was one where you saw that two people made a personal choice. It's personal responsibility. They chose to love, and look how happy she was. That's such a beautiful thing. Personal responsibility. Spiritualism has become an international phenomenon. And as a medium, I often do readings on Skype with spiritualists, not just in the USA and Canada, but in Australia, England, New Zealand. And so I will be presenting these principles with an international view, as seen by both the Spiritualist National Union over in Great Britain and the rest of the British Commonwealth, and as well as the National Spiritualist Association of Churches viewpoint, because they're slightly different in our principles. And also, there are many new spiritualists here in America that come from childhoods where the family religion was Protestant or Catholic Christianity, as I myself did. And so many of you may still have some black and white ideas about morality that were learned in those early years in your childhood in the world of Christianity. But it is in this area of morality and personal responsibility where spiritualists differ quite a bit from the other religions. So let us begin by considering England's Spiritualist National Union principle number 5, which is stated as, we recognize personal responsibility, period. We recognize personal responsibility. Now that's a pretty comprehensive statement and easily translates into, you reap what you sow. In America, the National Spiritualist Association of Churches defines this a little less harshly when they state in principle number 7, we affirm the moral responsibility of individuals and that we make our own happiness or unhappiness as we obey or disobey nature's physical and spiritual laws. Now, naturally, what both statements on personal responsibility are saying is how the spiritual law of compensation and retribution actually works. Now, both the SNU and the NSAC talk about compensation, retribution in their principle number 6. For the Brits, it translates as, we recognize compensation and retribution hereafter for all the good and evil done on the earth. And in America, we translate it a little less directly, stating, we believe the highest morality is contained in the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And here, I prefer the American version, which turns it around to say, it isn't about you, it's about others. Or, as the Beatles so eloquently said, love is all there is. On the other hand, what all this is discussing is our own personal eternal progress. In other words, what are you making of yourself here in this physical life and also in the hereafter? Have you decided to love those around you? Or are you still busy striving to get to the top of the heap? To place that in modern terms, are you a Trump or a Queen of Hearts? Do you aspire to be like Donald or like Diana, Princess Diana? It was really that real and that close to the heart. The big problem with eternal progress is that it still has to be personally chosen. While spiritualists believe as stated in the NSAC's 8th principle, that the doorway to reformation is never closed against any soul here or hereafter, and is therefore open to every human soul, it still has to be chosen by the individual human soul. This necessity to personally choose is what the principle of personal responsibility is all about. Unfortunately, if we rely on our inclination, it may be what we learned in childhood, at Bible school or Sunday school. And that was a quotation from St. Paul, when St. Paul is quoted from the Bible as saying, heaven is a free gift. It's not earned or deserved. And although that just is not what any of us have ever experienced, it sounds so good that we want to believe it. As I myself matured in my spiritual understanding, and I left the Christian faith behind, I lamented that if it could only be true that Jesus had paid for all our sins, and so we didn't have to work at our own spiritual improvement, it would be so refreshingly easy. But in the physical world, none of us has ever seen that. Instead, you reap what you sow. And so it is with the spiritual world as well. You reap what you sow. In a practical sense, in the here and now, when you see homeless people on the street, our political correctness wants to say, oh, they can't help it. But the truth is, they chose to sow nothing, and consequently, their harvest is minimal. Yes, we should show them love because love is all there is. But we should not pity them. Lovingly, rather than give them bread, we need to teach them how to make bread in accordance with our beliefs in the Golden Rule. And as spiritualists, we believe that nature's physical and spiritual laws apply both here and hereafter, and that the doorway to reformation is never closed, but it is our individual personal responsibility to choose eternal progress, and no one can make that choice for another person. In our politically correct world, some would say that our spiritualist belief in personal responsibility is too harsh. But both our collective experience in society, here in the physical, and also what Spirit has shared with us from the hereafter, tells us the same story. You reap what you sow. And you have to personally choose to make eternal progress. And when you begin to take your eyes off of yourself and consider that we are all in this together, you quickly see that love is all there is. And out of love, you will choose to improve your soul and your individual part of the whole. So aspire to be like the Queen of Hearts. And that's what happened for Jacqueline and her father. They chose to love. It was a beautiful choice, and you heard a great gratitude. Thank you.